call me arrogant because what I'm saying is true. I'm European champion, so I'm not one of the bottle. I think I'm a special one.
June 2nd, 2004 was a historic day for Chelsea Football Club. 41-year-old Jose Mourinho was unveiled as the club's new manager after the Blues had sacked Claudio Ranieri just days before. Jose Mourinho would join after guiding FC Porto to the Champions League, on top of back-to-back league titles, one Portuguese Cup and Super Cup, as well as the UEFA Cup won in 2003. Mourinho made a name for himself as a coach and translator for Bobby Robson for Sporting Lisbon and would follow the Englishman to Porto and also to Barcelona. Mourinho also worked alongside Louis van Gaal after Bobby Robson left the Nou Camp. The Portuguese was regarded as a talented young coach. Mourinho would start his career as a manager at Benfica. It was a short but impressive stint. Mourinho would then become Unai Deliria manager in July 2001, and his impressive work with the club caught the attention of Porto, and in January 2002 they would appoint him as their manager. Mourinho would have a successful 2.5 years as manager, leading the club to the aforementioned trophies, before Chelsea would come knocking and would be the first manager appointed by Roman Abramovich in the Abramovich era, as well as the first Portuguese manager to manage in the Premier League. Mourinho came to Chelsea with big expectations to deliver, particularly after the infamous press conference. Chelsea's new manager would bring his backroom staff from Porto, whilst Chelsea legend Steve Clarke would become assistant manager. The Blues would add reinforcements. Chelsea would spend big as they did the previous summer. Ricardo Carvalho and Paulo Ferreira would follow Mourinho from Porto, whilst fellow Portuguese players Thiago and Nuno Moraes would join from Benfica and Penafiel respectively. Petr Cech and Arjen Robben would also arrive at Stamford Bridge after they had agreed to move to London in the spring of 2004. Serbian striker Matija Kezman would follow Arjen Robben, joining from PSV. Ivorian striker Didier Drogba would sign for Marseille for £24 million, so many things were expected from the Blues. Chelsea would have to make room for the new signings by saying goodbye to quite a few players. Mario Melchiot would sign for Birmingham City after spending 5 years at Chelsea. He would join former Chelsea teammate Mikel Forssell, who would stay at the Midland side on loan after impressing the season prior. Another Chelsea man went to Birmingham, this time Jasper Grønkjær, who is best remembered for scoring the winning goal against Liverpool in May 2003, securing Champions League football for Chelsea in a must-win game, and this match is thought to be the reason Abramovich bought the club. Another fan favourite would leave the bridge as Marcel Desailly would join Qatari side Al Gharafa after 6 years as a Chelsea regular. Goalkeepers Marco Ambrosio and Neil Sullivan would leave after a single season, joining Grasshoppers and Leeds United respectively. Bolo Zenden would make his loan permanent at Middlesbrough, whilst Mario Stanic and Emmanuel Petit would hang up their boots and retire from football. Forgotten player Winston Bogarde would also retire after spending 4 years at Chelsea, only making 11 appearances. Bogarde was happy playing very sporadically as he was on £40,000 a week, which was very high back when he signed in 2000. Chelsea had tried to sell him, but no other clubs were willing to pay his wages, so the defender would see his contract out. His last appearance for the club was a 2-1 League Cup win in November 2002 against Gillingham. Carlton Cole would join Aston Villa on loan, whilst Argentines Juan Sebastian Veron and Hernan Crespo would also go out on loan. They would go to Milan, however, they would go from teammates to rivals as Veron would join Inter and Crespo would join AC. Veron struggled at Chelsea the previous season with injuries. Crespo would make way for Drogba as he could not quite find his feet in England. Last but not least, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank would leave Chelsea after 4 years at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea's number 9 scored 87 goals in 177 appearances for the club, becoming a fan favourite and was known for scoring spectacular goals. He would join fellow Dutchman Bolo Zenden at Middlesbrough. He would for sure be missed by Chelsea fans. Chelsea won 3 out of 5 of their games in pre-season. These included a Gianfranco Zola testimonial game at Stamford Bridge on the 8th of August 2004 as the Italian legend departed the club at the end of the 2002-2003 season. Chelsea defeated Real Zaragoza 3-0. new boy Drogba would score, with Milito scoring an own goal and Scott Parker wrapping up the game. Chelsea's first official game under Jose Mourinho would be against Manchester United on Sunday 15th of August 2004. The Red Devils were knocked out by Mourinho's Porto in the Champions League just 5 months prior, and they also lost 1-0 at Stamford Bridge the season prior, so would no doubt be looking for revenge and spoil the party. New signings Petr Cech, Paulo Ferreira and Didier Drogba would make their debuts, whilst Alexis Merton would play for Chelsea for the first time after returning from his loan spell at Portsmouth. Kesman would also make his debut, coming on as a sub for Drogba. Idiger Johnson ultimately scored the winner, with Drogba getting an assist, as the striker bundled in a goal, giving Mourinho the perfect start. Chelsea's next game was a tricky encounter against Steve Bruce's Birmingham City. Chelsea drew 0-0 home and away the season prior, but this time would win 1-0 thanks to a goal from Joe Cole, making it 2 wins from 2. Ricardo Carvalho also made his debut for the club on this day. The third game of the season would be a midweek trip to Premier League new boys Crystal Palace. Mourinho's men made it 3 wins from 3. Drogba and Thiago scored their first goals for the club. The following Saturday, Chelsea conceded a goal for the first time as James Beattie scored an excellent goal in just 12 seconds. Ironically, Beattie then scored an own goal. Frank Lampard then scored a penalty in the 41st minute, which proved to be the winner. 4 wins out of 4 going into the international break gave the Blues the perfect start under Mourinho. Chelsea were drawn in Group H to face CSKA Moscow, PSG and Mourinho's former team and the reigning champions FC Porto in their Champions League group. Chelsea would drop points for the first time away to Aston Villa, drawing 0-0. 3 days later, the Blues started off their Champions League campaign away to PSG. Chelsea comfortably won 3-0 thanks to a brace from Didier Drogba and a goal from John Terry. The following Sunday, Chelsea hosted London rivals Tottenham. Spurs managed to get a rare point at Stamford Bridge, frustrating Mourinho with a 0-0 draw. Mourinho criticised Tottenham for their defensive approach to the game in his post-match interview.
By Czech. After that, they just defend with 10 players. They left the foul alone in front. They didn't play football. They just defend. And as we say now in my country, they brought the buzz and they left the buzz in front of the goal.
Adrian Mutu would then be sacked by Chelsea in October 2004 for breach of contract after testing positive for cocaine. He was also banned from football for 7 months. Mourinho's relationship with Mutu was very difficult after the striker played in a World Cup qualifier for Romania in early October 2004, where he was supposedly injured. The former forward contested the decision for more than a decade, but ultimately had to pay Chelsea €17 million in compensation, which is the largest fine in FIFA history. Chelsea would face Mourinho's former team Porto on matchday 2 in the Champions League. The Blues would secure a 3-1 win over the European champions. Chelsea hosted Liverpool on October 3, 2004, defeating Rafael Benitez's men 1-0 thanks to a goal from Joe Cole. This would be the start of a fierce rivalry between Mourinho and Benitez, and the rivalry between the Reds and the Blues would become even bigger than before later on in the season. Chelsea would suffer their first ever defeat under Mourinho after the international break to Manchester City at the City of Manchester Stadium. Nicolas Anelka's penalty was enough to get the 3 points for Kevin Keegan's men. This was also the first goal Chelsea conceded away from home of the season. The Blues would bounce back, winning 8 games on the bounce in all competitions. Jose Mourinho won Barclays Manager of the Month for the first time in November, whilst Ian Robin won Player of the Month. On Sunday, 12th of December 2004, Chelsea travelled to Highbury to face title rivals and champions Arsenal. Thierry Henry put the Gunners 1-0 ahead with a fantastic goal. John Terry's bullet header levelled. Arsenal were controversially given a free kick for a foul on Robert Pires. Henry quickly scored his free kick as Petr Cech was organising his wall. Chelsea felt that this should have been disallowed, but the goal was given. Idiger Johnson, who had a decent goal-scoring record against Arsenal, would equalise for Chelsea. Thierry Henry missed a sitter towards the end. Chelsea left Highbury with a rare league point, but remained 5 points clear of the Gunners. The Blues would finish 2004 on a high, winning their next 3 games of the year, keeping a clean sheet in all these matches. Scott Parker would unfortunately break his foot in the 4-0 win over Norwich, a real setback as he was finding his opportunities limited. On New Year's Day 2005, Chelsea travelled to Anfield to face Liverpool in the lunchtime kickoff. The Blues would be victorious at Anfield for the second season in a row, winning 1-0 thanks to an 80th minute winner from Joe Cole. In the cup competitions, Chelsea would reach the League Cup final for the first time since 1998. The Blues would knock Manchester United out of the semi-finals. After a goalless draw at Stamford Bridge in the first leg, Chelsea would defeat the Red Devils 2-1 at Old Trafford. Frank Lampard would fire Chelsea in front in the first half before Ryan Giggs would equalise for Manchester United. It looked like the tie was going to extra time, but in the 85th minute, Damien Duff's cross from a free kick found its way in the back of the net. This would settle the tie, and the Blues were now in the final. They would go on to face Liverpool at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, Wales, as Wembley was being reconstructed. In the FA Cup, Chelsea's hunt for a first FA Cup since 2000 began with a tie against Scunthorpe United at Stamford Bridge. Yuri Yarashik would make his Chelsea debut in this game after he was signed from CSKA Moscow just 2 days earlier. Chelsea would go on to win 3-1. Chelsea also comfortably defeated Tottenham in a routine victory at White Hart Lane, winning 2-0 thanks to a brace from Frank Lampard. The month finished with wins against Portsmouth in the Premier League, and the final game of January was a 2-0 victory over Birmingham City in the FA Cup, making it 7 wins out of 8 in January, marking off a very good month for Mourinho's men, with Chelsea 10 points clear top of the table, into a cup final, and the boss winning Manager of the Month for the second time. Petr Cech received an award for his run of clean sheets, while skipper John Terry received Player of the Month. On the 2nd of February, Chelsea faced a tricky midweek trip to Ewood Park, facing Blackburn Rovers. Iron Robin would get an early goal. However, the Blues would concede a penalty. Petr Cech saved Paul Dickoff's penalty. Chelsea would hold on for a gritty 1-0 win as Cech surpassed Peter Schmeichel's record of 694 minutes without conceding a goal. An 8th win in a row in the Premier League put Chelsea 11 points clear on top of the table. The following Sunday, Chelsea hosted Manchester City at Stamford Bridge, looking to avenge their defeat at City in October. David James was the hero for City, as it would be a 0-0 draw at the Bridge. Chelsea would win 1-0 at Everton the following week, but Newcastle would knock Chelsea out of the FA Cup the following week. Kluivert put the Magpies ahead in the 4th minute, but it was not Chelsea's day, as Wayne Bridge picked up an injury that would end his season. Cudicini would get sent off this day, as Chelsea's dream for a quadruple would end. Chelsea met Barcelona in the last 16 of the Champions League, with the first leg being held at the Nou Camp. Giuliano Belletti scored an own goal, putting the Blues in front. Didier Drogba would controversially be sent off in the second half. The referee would send the Ivorian off for a clash with Victor Valdez. Max Lopez would score after coming off the bench just 3 minutes earlier, scoring from Samuel Eto'o's pass. Lopez would then return the favour, setting Eto'o up as Barca's number 9 scored the winner, putting the Catalans 2-1 up on aggregate. It was all to play for in the second leg at Stamford Bridge. After the game, Jose Mourinho told Portuguese magazine Record Des that the team that had played best won. However, he would go on to say, "They only did that against 10 men. I think the game would have never been lost if it had been 11 against 11. The referee was inefficient. It was an adulterated result. When Deco produced a ridiculous dive in the area, the referee didn't show him a yellow card." Mourinho would go on to claim that Barcelona manager Frank Rijkaard visited the referee's dressing room at half-time and connected that to the sending off of Didier Drogba. "When I saw Rijkaard enter the referee's changing room at half-time, I couldn't believe it. When Drogba was sent off, I wasn't surprised." The following Sunday, on the 27th of February 2005, Chelsea met Liverpool in the Carling Cup final. John Arne-Risa put the Reds ahead in just 45 seconds, the quickest goal in League Cup final history. Chelsea were very fortunate not to concede a penalty, as Makelele appeared to bring Gerrard down. Chelsea would have their chances. Petr Cech would pull off a great save in the second half, and it was quite an end-to-end battle. Liverpool skipper Steven Gerrard then scored an own goal in the 79th minute. Jose Mourinho would be sent off for shushing the Liverpool fans. The final went to extra time. Didier Drogba would bundle in a goal thanks to a long throw-in from Glenn Johnson. Matthias Kesman would put Chelsea 3-1 up. Just a minute later, Antonio Nunes pulled one back for Liverpool. Chelsea hung on for the victory for their first trophy in 5 years and their first League Cup since 1998. This was the first trophy under Roman Abramovich's ownership, and Jose Mourinho won a trophy in his first season in England. In his post-match interview, Mourinho would go on to say,
I'm very happy, of course, I'm very happy. Not just for me, because for me it's not so important. I think for the fans, for the club, for the players, especially for the players who are in this club for a few years without silverware, I think it's important. It's very difficult to win for the first time, and for these players is the first time, and for the club is the first time over the last, I think, 5 years. So it was very important for us.
How much do you regret your actions that caused you to be sent off?
I don't regret, but I have a lot of respect for Liverpool fans, and what I did, the signal of close your mouth a little bit, was not for them.
Who was it for?
For the English press, because they speak too much, because Chelsea lost 2 matches. In my opinion, you try to do everything to disturb Chelsea and to try to take some confidence from us and try to put some pressure on us. I have to be fair with.
As though you're feeling the pressure.
I'm not feeling the pressure. No, you cannot put pressure on me. No chance. No chance. I read a lot of times during this week that I have to prove a lot in English football. Sir Alex is the only one European champion in this country. Nobody else. So I have to prove what?
Congratulations, well done today.
Thanks a lot.
Chelsea's next game would be Norwich away in the Saturday evening kick-off. Manchester United could only get a 0-0 draw away to Premier League new boys Crystal Palace earlier that day, and the Blues would take advantage, winning 3-1, going 8 points clear with a game in hand. 3 days later, Chelsea would host Barcelona in the second leg of the last 16 Champions League. Idiger Johnson put Chelsea in an early lead thanks to a good ball from Matthias Kesman. Frank Lampard would double the lead, pouncing on Joe Cole's deflected shot, putting the ball in the back of the net. Damien Duff would put Chelsea 3-0 up, scoring Chelsea's third goal in 9 minutes. Interestingly, Chelsea also did this against Barcelona 5 years earlier in the Champions League quarter-finals. Chelsea would concede a penalty as Paulo Ferreira would be booked for a handball in the box. Petr Cech would get close, but Brazilian superstar Ronaldinho converted his penalty. Barcelona's number 10 then would score a superb goal to pull another goal back for Rijkaard's men. Chelsea skipper John Terry would ultimately grab the winner in the second half. A header from Damien Duff's corner was enough to put Chelsea through and make Stamford Bridge erupt. An absolute classic Champions League match. Chelsea would continue their march towards the Premier League title, picking up 3 wins from 3, defeating West Brom 1-0, Crystal Palace 4-1 and a 3-1 away win to Southampton. On the 6th of April 2005, Chelsea hosted Bayern Munich in the quarter-finals of the Champions League. The Blues were without manager Jose Mourinho, as the boss was given a 2-match ban for bringing the game in disrepute for alleging that referee Anders Frisk had been talking to Frank Rijkaard at half-time in the defeat to Barcelona at the Nou Camp. However, in 2019, Mourinho confirmed that he hid in a laundry basket at Stamford Bridge, as he was not allowed to communicate with staff or players. Mourinho said that he had arrived in the dressing room at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 hours before kick-off, and hid in the laundry basket to talk to his players and staff. Chelsea's goalkeeping coach was also seen leaving the bench 3 times. Each time he came back, Chelsea made a substitution in the game. Chelsea would win 4-2 on the night in another classic match. Joe Cole's deflected shot would find its way into the back of the net, coming off Bayern defender Lucio. Bastian Schweinsteiger would equalise in the second half. Lampard would put Chelsea back in the lead. He then got a second goal. A superb turn and volley put the Blues 3-1 up. Drogba stabbed in a goal from close range before Michael Ballack converted a penalty in the 93rd minute to give the Germans a chance in the second leg. The next week, coming off the back of a 1-1 draw to Birmingham on the weekend, Chelsea travelled to Munich. Frank Lampard scored once again. Chelsea were quite fortunate as it was a deflected shot. Pizarro levelled for the Bavarians. Didier Drogba got another goal, and Guerrero and Scholl would then score, and Bayern would win 3-2 on the night. However, it would be Chelsea going through to the semi-finals for the second year in a row. Liverpool would be the opponents. Chelsea, with Jose Mourinho back on the touchline, would host the Reds at Stamford Bridge in the first leg of the semi-finals. It would end in a 0-0 stalemate, all to play for at Anfield. The following Saturday, Chelsea travelled to the Reebok Stadium to face Bolton Wanderers. A victory would secure Chelsea's first league title in 50 years. Frank Lampard would score a brace in the second half, securing a 2-0 win. 50 years of wait was finally over, and Chelsea had finally won the Premier League title. Jose Mourinho won the title in his first season as manager, on top of the Carling Cup. After the game, Mourinho would go on to...
No, our group is a special group. Our group is a special group. They deserve this. I think nobody speaking with fair and sense can say we don't deserve this title, because we did it absolutely magnificent.
Luis Garcia's infamous ghost goal would ultimately be the decider in the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals. Liverpool would go on to win the Champions League that year in Istanbul, famously coming 3-0 down to draw 3-3, with the Reds winning on penalties, winning the European Cup for the 5th time. Chelsea would lift the Premier League title the following Saturday, defeating Charlton Athletic 1-0. Makelele would score his first goal for the Blues. Lampard would be fouled in the 89th minute, and Chelsea were awarded a penalty. Lampard, the designated taker, generously gave it to Claude Makelele. The Frenchman's penalty was initially saved, but he scored from the rebound. Chelsea would win 1-0 for the 12th and final time of the season, and the celebrations would be underway. 3 days later, Chelsea did the league double over Manchester United, winning 3-1 at Old Trafford. Van Nistelrooy put the Red Devils ahead. Thiago then scored a screamer. Johnson scored as he did in the first game of the season against the Red Devils, and Joe Cole would finish the game off. The season concluded with a 1-1 draw to Newcastle United. Chelsea won the Premier League with a then record of 95 points, finishing 12 points clear of Arsenal, who would win the FA Cup that year. Chelsea broke many records this year that have since been broken. However, the fewest goals conceded away in the season in 9, most clean sheets kept in the season in 25, and the fewest goals conceded in the season in 15 is still a record as of 2023. John Terry won PFA Player of the Year, Frank Lampard won Footballer Writers Association Footballer of the Year, PFA Fans Player of the Year, the Premier League Player of the Season, and finished runners-up in the Ballon d'Or. Petr Cech won the Golden Glove, whilst Mourinho won Premier League Manager of the Year. Petr Cech, John Terry, Frank Lampard and Arjen Robben would make PFA Team of the Year. It certainly was a special season for Chelsea. Jose Mourinho had a dream debut season for the Blues, certainly backing up his special one statement in his press conference. Mourinho had built a young, winning team that teams are now afraid of. Stamford Bridge was now a fortress, and the majority of Chelsea's new signings had certainly made an impact for the club. The future was now bright and very exciting for Chelsea. The following season of 2005-2006 would be Chelsea's 100th year as a club, which I will cover in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and follow my Twitter. Thank you and take care.
Up the Chelsea!